Hello, cosmonauts. Today we are going to be exploring creepy histories that people see on internet or they're live it by their own. Let's see.
History 1. Here's two of my favorite horror stories from the Three Kingdoms period in China, specifically from the Wu Kingdom. Once there was a man named Jiang Chu who was a caretaker of a lake. When heavy rains would flow, Jiang would come out to check if the dams near the lake had flooded. One time, he was checking the dams during a heavy monsoon when a beautiful maiden wearing fancy blue clothing and holding an umbrella called out to him.
Jiang, please let me follow you to shelter from this horror.
Jiang felt sorry for the maiden and thought he would help her when he suddenly realized, wait, I have never seen such a woman around these parts. Why would such a lady with expensive clothing be outside during a monsoon? She must be a ghost.
So Jiang started sprinting away from the woman, and the woman started sprinting like mad to catch up with him. He climbed up a hill to get rid of her, which he did. He looked back after losing her and saw that the woman changed into a humongous otter and shuffled back into the water, and the umbrella and clothing it once wore turned into lotus leaves. After this, Jiang made sure to warn the villagers of the otter, which apparently targeted young men like Jiang. Part 2. Once a man named Liang, who lived near the capital of Wu, was riding his horse cart to his home around midnight. While he was on his way, he saw that a small boy near the age of 10 was playing a harp by the side of the trail. Liang was worried about the safety of the boy, asked if he needed a ride, and the boy said yes and got on the cart alongside Liang. The boy then started playing the most beautiful songs Liang had ever heard for what seemed like hours. Amused, Liang tried to ask the boy where he came from and who his parents were, but the boy suddenly stuck out his tongue, which was huge, slimy, and green, and opened his eyes so wide that Liang nearly fainted of shock. Then the boy vanished without a trace. After 20 miles, Liang came to his senses, and soon after an old man was on the side of the road. Liang let the old man onto the cart, after first asking the old man his name, village, and so on. Liang then told the old man, "You know, before yourself, there was some ghost before that played the most amazing harp I have ever heard."
To which the old man replied,
"What a coincidence. I am also good at the harp."
Then the old man took out his tongue, and it was also huge, slimy, and green, and opened his eyes even wider this time. Liang was so scared of this that he fell from his horse cart and died. History 2. Here's a fantastic story. This version by Lefcadio Hearn, which just goes to show how old jump scares are. I've reformatted and removed the footnotes, but you can easily find a version of this online. Mujina. On the Akasaka Road in Tokyo, there is a slope called Ki no Kunizaka, which means the slope of the province of Kie. I do not know why it is called the slope of the province of Ki. On one side of this slope, you see an ancient moat, deep and very wide, with high green banks rising up to some place of gardens. And on the other side of the road extend the long and lofty walls of an imperial palace. Before the era of street lamps and jinrikishas, this neighborhood was very lonesome after dark, and belated pedestrians would go miles out of their way rather than mount the Ki no Kunizaka alone after sunset, all because of a Mujina that used to walk there. The last man who saw the Mujina was an old merchant of the Kyobashi quarter, who died about 30 years ago. This is the story as he told it. One night, at a late hour, he was hurrying up the Ki no Kunizaka when he perceived a woman crouching by the moat, all alone and weeping bitterly. Fearing that she intended to drown herself, he stopped to offer her any assistance or consolation in his power. She appeared to be a slight and graceful person, handsomely dressed, and her hair was arranged like that of a young girl of good family. "Oh, Joku," he exclaimed, approaching her. "Oh, Yoku, do not cry like that. Tell me what the trouble is, and if there be any way to help you, I shall be glad to help you." He really meant what he said, for he was a very kind man, but she continued to weep, hiding her face from him with one of her long sleeves. "Oh, Jochu," he said again, as gently as he could, "please, please listen to me. This is no place for a young lady at night. Do not cry, I implore you. Only tell me how I may be of some help to you." Slowly she rose up but turned her back to him and continued to moan and sob behind her sleeve. He laid his hand lightly upon her shoulder and pleaded, "Oh, Joku, oh, Joku, oh, Joku. Listen to me, just for one little moment. Oh, Joku, oh, Joku." Then that Oh Joku turned around and dropped her sleeve and stroked her face with her hand. And the man saw that she had no eyes or nose or mouth, and he screamed and ran away. Up Ki no Kunizaka he ran, and all was black and empty before him. On and on he ran, never daring to look back, and at last he saw a lantern so far away that it looked like the gleam of a firefly, and he made for it. It proved to be only the lantern of an itinerant soba seller, who had set down his stand by the roadside. But any light and any human companionship was good after that experience, and he flung himself down at the feet of the soba seller, crying out, "Ah, ah, ah, Corey,
core, roughly exclaimed the soba man. Here, what is the matter with you? Anybody hurt you? No, nobody hurt me, panted the other. Only scared you? Queried the peddler unsympathetically. Robbers? Not robbers, not robbers, gasped the terrified man. I saw a woman by the moat, and she showed me. Ha, I cannot tell you what she showed me. Was it anything like this that she showed you? Cried the soba man, stroking his own face, which therewith became like unto an egg, and simultaneously the light went out. The light. History 3. One of my favorites is from Germany, Der Schimmelreiter. It's basically this. A young boy lived on the North Sea and was fascinated by math and physics. His village was sheltered by a dam that would occasionally break down, and he devoted his life to the study of fluid dynamics and math. When he was old enough, he raised everybody's taxes to build a new dam, and most people weren't happy with that. During the dam building process, tradition stated that a life was needed, and the workers attempted to bury a puppy alive in the dam. The man refused, saying it would create a weak point in the breakwater, and saved the pup's life. Years later, the storm of the century approached. He rode up and down his dam on a magnificent horse, making sure it was okay and eased the villagers' minds. The dam began to break apart, and he charged ahead to attempt to hold it together by himself. A huge wave crashed into the dam, drowning him and his horse, and the storm immediately subsided. The rest of the dam held, saving the village. To this day, when a large storm approaches, the writer appears to ease the minds of those by the dam and to alert them to seek higher ground. History 4. Japan has a tradition of storytelling, a centuries-old art form called rakugo. It has many stories spanning various genres, including horror. One of the titles I remember off the top of my head is Shinigami, meaning God of Death, about a fellow who is tricked into basically committing suicide by a God of Death playing some sort of prank on him. There's lots of other scary stories to be found. I suggest you look into it in more detail. It's very interesting, and you can find rakugoka, professional storytellers, performing some of these stories on YouTube as well. This is a sidebar, but rakugo is fascinating as a Westerner who found 3 key elements profound. Japan has no stand-up comedy, like none at all. 99% of comedy is just physical slapstick. Rakugo performances are memorized texts, there are no improvisations, so fans know exactly every line of dialogue about to be performed, yet it's all in vocal and hand motions. This is like having a Dan George Carlin set performed by Robin Williams. Sure, it would be interesting, but could it really work? As far as I've been able to figure, this art form is the closest to stuff like Homeric readings in ancient Greece. Everyone knows the words, but the comedic performer making Agamemnon having a posh Oxbridge accent while Achilles has a Scottish dialect is as close as I could figure to explaining how funny this entire art form can be. History 5. In the Icelandic medieval sagas, there are plenty of rather horrible going-ons. The Draugr might be of particular interest to you. They are basically horribly disfigured revenants, like our modern zombies, but they also wreck houses and kill livestock, break their victims' bones, possess animals, and make people go mad just by their presence. Egil's Saga and Grettis Saga are famous for their Draugr episodes, but there are several other stories too. You should easily be able to find translations of these on the internet. The Draugr start appearing in chapter 32. This translation is rather archaic. Just do some Googling. Many sagas are very long, and the relevant bits are just parts of them, but well worth reading anyway. History 6. Su-daji is a tale with horror elements from a perspective of ancient China. Su-daji was a concubine possessed by a malevolent fox spirit who brought the downfall of the Shang dynasty. Here are a few accounts of her terror pulled from Wikipedia. He, the emperor, allowed the guests to play a cat and mouse game nude in the forest to amuse Daji. When one of King Zhou's concubines, the daughter of Lord Zhou, protested, King Zhou had her executed. Her father was ground in pieces and his flesh fed to King Zhou's vassals. Daji's greatest joy was to hear people cry in physical torment. Once she saw a farmer walking barefoot on ice and ordered his feet cut off so she could study them and figure out why they were so resistant to low temperatures. On another occasion, she had a pregnant woman's belly cut open, so it satisfied her curiosity to find out what happened inside. Daji was best known for her invention of a method of torture known as paoluo. A bronze cylinder covered with oil was heated like a furnace, with charcoal beneath until its sides became extremely hot. The victim was made to walk on top of the slowly heating cylinder, and he was forced to shift his feet to avoid the burning. The oily surface made it difficult for the victim to maintain his position and balance. If the victim fell into the charcoal below, he would be burnt to death. The victim was forced to dance and scream in agony before dying, while the observing King Zhou and Daji would laugh in delight. Sorry for the long post. I think this captures the true fear of ancient China, not just blood and gore, but the downfall of their pride and civility. History 7. In Venezuela, we have a demon called El Silbón, he who whistles. The story varies, but
The way Wad told goes like this. There once was a happy farming couple that lived in Los Llanos. They had tried for very long to have a child, but they never had such luck. One day, though, farming wife became pregnant, and she had a son. Since this was their only child, the farming couple tended to spoil him. As such, the child became very finicky. He would often refuse to eat and would consistently throw tantrums until he got what he wanted to eat. These tantrums became increasingly violent as the boy grew, to the point where his own parents feared him. One day, the boy requested deer meat, since deer was his favorite. The father went out to hunt, but he looked, and he couldn't find one single deer, not even a fawn. Since the farmer hunted deer so much to please the boy, all the deer in the area had gone. He came back empty-handed to the farm, and when his son noticed, he took the rifle from his father and killed him. Later that day, his mother and grandfather returned home from the market. As they opened the door, there they saw the young boy eating a roasted human arm with his father's head as a centerpiece. The scene caused the mother to become hysterical and insane. The grandfather, filled with rage and hatred, tied the to a tree stump and whipped him until he could no longer sit upright. Then he poured rum and rubbed limes in the boy's wounds. The boy was then freed, but cast out from the farm and the village, and was given his father's uneaten remains in a bag for him to carry on his back. His grandfather then damned and cursed the boy and sent a pack of hungry dogs to hunt him after he had left. As the dogs got closer to the boy, the people of the village heard him whistle a peculiar tune, usually an ascending chromatic scale stopping in the major third, like C, C, sharp D, D, sharp E, and then the dogs tore him apart. Hey now say El Silbon roams the woods and forests of Venezuela, still carrying the bag with his father's remains. He is looking for prey to torture, usually going after promiscuous and unfaithful men. You can hear him whistle in the woods sometimes, that same peculiar tune he whistled when he died. If you hear him nearby, stay put and hide. That means he's far away. If you hear him in the distance though, it means he's right behind you. History 8. Basque. One summer long ago, a farmer in a Basque village was working hard in his fields. He was young but disliked having so much work to do on his own. So, looking for reprieve, he journeyed down into the village nearby. There he met a wise woman, old and shriveled but sharp of eye and wit. The villagers told the young farmer that the wise woman knew of many things and could help him to a solution. So he sought her out and asked how he could get help on his farm. She told him of the Galtzagoriak. These were small elf-like creatures who wore nothing but red pants. They will do nothing but help you, said the wise woman, cackling. Pleased, the farmer asked where he could find these Galtzagoriak. She gave to the farmer a chest which was full of these little elves. Happy at the prospect of less work for himself, the farmer gave to the wise woman hammer, nail, and plow. Upon arriving back at his home, the farmer opened the box and sprung the Galtzagoriak. The little elves were just as the wise woman had described, red-clothed and helpful. What to do? They asked, and the farmer gave them tasks. The elves, quick and light, made short that which was long and hard for the farmer. What to do? The young farmer gave them more and more tasks, but as time passed, he grew weary of them. They never slept, nor spoke, but 3 words. What to do? They drove him harder than if he had done the work himself, for he could not sleep with the Galtzagoriak chattering in his ear. What to do? Finally, displeased, he lured the Galtzagoriak back to the chest and shut it tight. He brought it back to the village and sought the wise woman with whom he'd made his exchange. I can neither eat nor sleep with these Galtzagoriak, said the farmer to the wise woman. Cackling, the wise woman returned the farmer's hammer, nail, and plow for the chest of Galtzagoriak. And returning with his things, the farmer, now wiser, made his farm the most successful in the whole valley, and he was never again as weary as when he had had the Galtzagoriak. Hey you, if you enjoying the video, subscribe for more histories. History 9. While studying classic philology, I did find and translate some ancient Greek horror stories. I didn't actually translate much, and it was just a tiny and extremely fragmented portion of texts what I found. I moved abroad and barely have anything with me, and sadly I can't find anything about that in any of the books and materials that I brought with me. I can't remember the name of the author either, or the book where I found it. Some old volume in my university's library, Universidad de Malaga, southern Spain. That, and the fact that there is something, is sadly all I can give you. I've tried to find them again over the years, but never could. As far as I remember them, it isn't really something worth the effort though. It was really just a few paragraphs, just a few pages worth of broken material that barely made any sense. Still, horror is a very wide topic. Are you looking at literature? Mythology? Inuit mythology has a few pounds of horror, for example. History 10 is the Thai folk tale about a woman named May Nok. May Nok was a woman whose husband was drafted into military service. She was pregnant at the time and was due to give birth while her husband was still away. She and her unborn child both end up dying during the birth. When her husband gets home, he finds his loving wife and child there to greet him. The neighbors try to warn him that his wife is a ghost, but She kills anyone who tries to warm him. One day, as she's cooking a meal, she drops a lime off the porch and stretches her arm all the way down to the ground and picks it up. Her husband sees her and realizes she's a ghost, so in the middle of the night he runs away. May Nak is grave-stricken about the loss of her husband and ends up terrorizing the town. Search Google for more information on this one. I know I don't have everything here. History 11. There's the Manananggal, a winged creature in the guise of a woman. The top half of its body can separate and fly away from the bottom half, and to kill one, you have to sprinkle salt on the bottom half. The Tianak, a monster that lures you by imitating the cry of a baby. The Aswang, kind of a general term, but the main image I have is this monster that had a long tongue with which it ate the babies from the wombs of pregnant women. The Kapre, a large creature in the tree that smokes a cigar, not much of a scary one. The Tikbalang, a creepy demon horse. A non-scary superstition is that when it rains while the sky is clear, Tikbalang are getting married. There are various popular ghost stories throughout the country as well. The White Lady, etc. History 12. I'm sure some other person here knows the episode of Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. I'm talking about Alas, it escapes my mind right now. HH is a podcast where Carlin talks about history. On one episode, he talks about Hannibal brining elephants over the mountains and how his first battle with the Romans went. Now, I do not do the story justice, but it's a good one, and had I not been in bed ready to sleep, I'd dig for a source. Ready? Hannibal was a shrewd tactician, and if memory serves right, his first battle, after crossing the Alps, was against mostly fresh recruits and a relatively bad commander, as few of those there were under the Romans. Hannibal had been harassing the enemy for some time, baiting them to chase with his horsemen. The night the battle went down, Hannibal had his forces camped behind a hill. Behind the hill there was a river, and on that side the Romans had camped for the night. An important factor was that it was foggy. Hannibal sent some of his horsemen a little ways around the hill, enough not to be noticed by the Romans. He let his troops rest during the day, and in the evening had large fires with a feast to prepare his troops. Hannibal sent some of his best troops into the night to rouse the Romans, riding through throwing torches and the like. Now the horror part kicks in. Imagine you're a young man, fresh as a recruit can be, stationed in a peaceful part of the Roman Empire, not expected to do much but train and keep the peace. Then the news hits. Hannibal, a feared enemy, is nearby, come as a ghost from the night close by and ready to threaten northern Italy. For geographic context, you've been chasing after a elusive force of horsemen. It's been hard days marching and traveling as hard as you can to catch them. You've gone to bed for the night. Shortly after falling asleep, you're awakened by screams and shouting. You're under attack. Fire are around you. Men on horseback is riding through the camp. You fend them off and your commander shouts at you to don't your armor. You're tired and fumbling to get your armor on. You're ordered to cross the river. In the dead of night, the river is waist deep. You're cold, tired, and hungry. The fog is thick and you cannot see. You can hear sounds. Creatures larger than any you can imagine can be heard moving in the distance. You get to shore, cold, wet, and tired. You're ordered to charge. You shamble to formation and move forward, only to see a far larger force than you expected. And the creatures, larger than any you've ever seen, gray with great tusks. As you charge forward, you hear screaming from behind as horsemen plow through your rear. That to me seems to be good fit for actual horror if you put your elf in the shoes, sandals, of someone who was there. Sorry for any inaccuracies and poor phrasing words. I am no Inglando, also very tired and on mobile. History 13. S21 prison in Cambodia. I've linked a website and copied the text from the site here, but it's something I never heard about in school. The Pol Pot regime ran S21 as a secret prison in Phnom Penh from the middle of 1975 until the end of 1978. Those who were accused of treason were brought to S21 with their families and were photographed when they arrived. These prisoners were brutally tortured until they confessed to whatever crime they had been charged with and were executed shortly thereafter. The photographs and confessions were submitted to Khmer Rouge authorities as proof that the traitors had been eliminated. Out of the 17,000 people who were known to have been in S21, only 6 survived. Once a suburban high school on the outskirts of Phnom Penh, Tal Sleng was turned into the S21 Interrogation Center and occupied 4 3-story buildings. The prison was guarded by 50 soldiers and was surrounded by a corrugated tin fence and 2 barbed wire enclosures. Inside S21, the classrooms has been converted into cells in which about 40 to 100 low-status prisoners were contained. The classrooms on the ground floor were used for the most important people, who were chained to their beds. A large room on the second floor was reserved for female prisoners. Several of these women were accused of crimes, but most of them were the wives and daughters of male prisoners. After being tortured and interrogated, sometimes over a period of months, all of these men, women, and children were brutally put to death. Prisoners received very little food, were not allowed to exercise, and had hardly any time to sleep. The prisoners were exhausted, disoriented, and suggestible. Many confessed to treasonous activities without ever being tortured. Others were subjected to such intense torture that it eventually killed them. Some of the prisoners committed suicide, one by grabbing a sentry's gun to shoot himself, and another who flung himself off the balcony that encircled the third floor of the prison. Nearby houses provided living quarters for a staff of 200, including cooks, medical personnel, clerk typists, artisans, interrogators, and guards. Members cultivated the rice and vegetables consumed inside the prison, lived just outside the compound. Most of the staff was recruited from Cambodia's rural poor. Nearly all of them were teenagers or in their early 20s, and many were illiterate. As a top-secret facility, the existence of S-21 was known only to prisoners, prison officials, and a handful of high-ranking Khmer Rouge. When suspects were arrested, they were called to study or summoned for consultation and were not told where they were going. Industrial workers who lived nearby referred to as a place where people went in but never come out. Even though the reign of terror slowed down in 1978, there is nothing to suggest that the killing would have stopped or that S-21 would have been shut down had Pol Pot remained in power. Today, Tuol Sleng stands as a constant reminder of the atrocities that occurred here, with walls that are lined with hundreds of photographs of the many prisoners who were condemned there. History 14. Oh, and from an old movie I saw about a man who befriended death. The story centers on Macario, a poor indigenous woodcutter during colonial Mexico, who lives embittered for being so poor and hungry. His economic situation keeps him and his family at the edge of starvation. After he sees a procession of roast turkeys, his dream is to eat a whole roast turkey just by himself. He announces in front of his wife and children that he will not eat until his dream comes true. His worried wife steals a turkey and gives it to Macario before he heads to the mountains to work. However, just as Macario prepares to eat the turkey, three men appear to him. The first one is the devil in the guise of a fine gentleman who tempts Macario in order to get a piece of the turkey. The second one is God in the guise of an old man. Macario refuses to share the turkey with either, since he believes that they both have the means necessary to get themselves what they want. When a third figure, a peasant like himself, appears to him, he gladly shares the turkey with the man. The third man is none other than Death itself. Death is unsure why Macario has shared his turkey with him and not with the devil and God. Macario responds, "Whenever you appear, there is no time for anything else." Macario hoped to forestall what he assumed to be his imminent death by gaining the time it would take for him and Death to eat. Death is amused and, as a compensation, names Macario his friend and gives him miraculous water that will heal any disease. If Death appears at the feet of the sick person, they can be healed with the water. But if Death appears by the person's head, he or she is condemned to die. This friendship lasts for years, but they never speak to each other, but merely stare. Death hints that Macario will meet him later that day. Macario returns home to find his son cold from falling into the well. Macario tries the water on his son and eventually becomes known as a miraculous healer, creating such commotion that the church itself will accuse him of heresy, and even the viceroy will ask for his services to cure his son. He is promised freedom if he can save the boy, or to be burned at the stake otherwise. Unfortunately for Macario, Death has to take the child, so Macario, in despair, begs and tries to escape, only to enter Death's cavern, filmed in the Cacahuamilpa caverns, and is reprimanded for turning his gift into merchandise. Death shows him the candles that the cavern is filled with, thousands of candles all representing a person's life. The making of the wax and length of the candle all factor into the lifespan of a given person. Death then snuffs out the candle of the viceroy's son before Macario's eyes. When Macario sees how short his candle is, he begs Death to save it, but Death refuses. In desperation, Macario snatches up his candle and runs out of the cavern, not heeding the shouts of Death behind him. The last scenes begin at twilight on the day that Macario shared the turkey with Death. He has not come home, and his wife and some villagers are looking for Macario out in the woods, only to find him peacefully dead, next to a turkey divided in halves, one of which is eaten, the other being intact, as if he died not fulfilling his dream of eating a complete turkey for himself. History 15. Have you heard of the Taily Po of Native American legends? It's pretty good campfire ghost story type stuff. It goes something like this. During a season of considerable hunger and a lack of suitable game, the tale begins with a hermit and his three hounds, Uno, Eno, and Kumtiko Calico. A man is out during a full bright moon, looking for the evening's meal, and manages to kill a small hare, which he shares with his dogs. Understandably still hungry, the man presses on and discovers a bizarre shape with bright yellow eyes and a long, scraggly tail. The hermit quickly severs its tail, screaming The cat-like creature runs off into the darkness, and its tail is then taken back and is eaten for dinner by the man. On the brink of sleep, a rustling and horrible scraping wakes the man. Sitting up, the hermit is able to see the gleaming eyes of the snarling creature leering at him from the foot of his bed. In an otherworldly voice, the ravenous cat demands the return of its tail, saying, "Give me back my tailipo." Terrified, the man calls for his hounds, which immediately come to his aid, chasing the beast off into the night. With the creature chased back into the woods, two of the hermit's dogs return, but Uno is missing. The man tries to sleep, but the tailipo soon returns, beckoning even more forcefully for the return of its tail. Again, the man sicks his hounds on the tailipo, and again one is missing upon the return of the survivor, this time Eno. Unable to sleep, the man clutches his weapon and waits for dawn with his remaining dog, Kumtiko Calico, nearby. When the tailipo appears for the third time, the man once again orders the hound to attack the tailipo. Again, and for the final time, the dog chases the creature away and does not return. The man, now left with no real protection, having exhausted his 3 hounds, cowers under his bed sheets, praying for dawn. Hours before daybreak, the man hears the familiar rustling sound, hoping it is one of his dogs. Unfortunately, the man is leapt upon by the tailipo and has dropped his weapon in terror. The ravenous beast is now eye to eye with the man and demands once more, "Give me back my tailipo." The man, terrified, finds the courage to push the creature away and yells, "I haven't got your tailipo. Zrение надеюсь, что создание уйдет." However, the ravenous creature, angrier than ever, yells back, "Yes, you have, and jumps back on the bed, mutilates the man, ripping and tearing with gnashing teeth and thrashing claws, and destroys the cabin. Supposedly, during the brightest and fullest of moons, the creature can be heard howling into the night, "Where is my tailipo?" Most children in the Appalachians learn this story one way or another. However, less gruesomely most of the time. History 16. I do not remember the beginning, but the premise is that the suitor must reach his beloved in time or she have to marry another man. So he start to ride early, to be in time, but he do not hurry. He have plenty of time to spare. He realized that he traveled a slow, so he increases speed. Still time left, but not as good as earlier. In the deep woods, he encounter a witch who have hurt her knee. She ask him for help to fetch resin from old trees so she can cure the knee. She is to hurt to do it herself. The man say he have no time and continue to ride, but regret it and backtrack, losing more time. It start to get dark deep into the woods, so it take extra time to get the resin. Then he come back to the witch. He have lost more time, so he throwing the resin to here and cursing here for make him late, and start to ride as fast as he can. Even as he is riding as fast as he can, he realized that he will be late, but something urges the horse to galloping faster, his mantle act like a sail. Now how it works do the story not tell. And then the horse ride over a bridge, the hooves sound like thunderclap. He man do arrive in time. And the story end that during his long life, the man was never late to a important meeting. Hey you, subscribe for more histories. History 17. It was a true story about a row house neighborhood. It tapped into a pre-existing fear. It was about a woman who lived alone in a row house where the basements were separated by a simple, brittle dividing brick wall. Her neighbor was a mentally unstable man. He was odd and stayed up all night making noises that she could hear, but she dismissed them as normal sounds from a shared wall with an oddball. At times, he would harass the lady for nothing at all by pounding on the walls in the night and watching her in a bizarre way when she would leave, return home. One day, she stopped showing up to work, prompting her workplace to request a wellness check. The police went to her house but found it empty. As they searched the house for any sign of her, they heard an electric table saw coming from the basement. Investigating further, they noticed some bricks had been removed from the back of the basement wall. Peering through the hole into the neighbor's basement, the police were confronted with a horrifying scene. The man was dismembering a human corpse, covered in blood. The corpse was the missing woman. The police arrested the man and put him in the back of a paddy wagon. When they arrived at the station and opened the door, they found that the man had hung himself with a belt and was dead. Having lived in many places with shared walls, this story has always haunted me. History 18. Nothing has haunted me, but there's 2 concerts I have always thought about since I was a child. And even into my adulthood, the movie IT had a loan in it that I never forgot. It has a scene when they're Eichter, and they meet up again in a hotel lobby or restaurant to discuss the past and future. And they come out of the place, and one looks at another and says something along the lines of, "We just sat down and I heard Teague's pianist play that nice music, and we all has a nice chat, and yet I have no idea if any of this is even real, or if I am imagining this. That concept of a perceived reality has never gone away for me. I have thought about that concept so much that I still go off the deep end in my imagination today about it. What even is reality and consciousness when you really think about it? The Thing, having a shape-shifting sentient and intelligent being capable of mocking anyone or anything around you, is very scary. Again, comes back to the concept of a reality versus a perceived reality. I have never been scared of horrors as genre as I grew up watching them before. I even knew what a horror was from a very young age, completely desensitized. But some of the concepts are very real to me and are far scarier than the movies themselves. Emo really gets my imagination going, and I love it. History 19. This town periodically has girls disappear, but none of the adults seem to notice or care. But this kid starts looking around once his sister disappears. Out in the distance, there is a rock grinder that frequently turns on. Turns out that most of the town is in on the disappearances to use the missing girls as breeding stock for the whole town so that they can have kids. All the kids from it have certain last names to prevent inbreeding because one parent got pissed at their son for dating another girl who shared the first letter of their last name, which meant they were related. The main character finds the location of the girls and even his sister. They are all chained up and forced on by their captors. Those that can't have kids anymore get tossed into the rock grinder. What gets worse is that the kid finds out that his dad is one of the captors and forces himself on his daughter so that the other two captors won't. The kid tries to save his sister, but he gets his ass beaten in and gets some serious head trauma so that no one believes him. So he leaves the town and becomes an alcoholic. History 20. This is a real stuff happened to me. Late night around 11:30 p.m.-ish, I was watching TV. My whole family was asleep. Nothing was really spooky, but suddenly I noticed that my window, which straight ahead from my bed, was moving towards me. I was a bit scared at that moment until I saw a red eye staring straight into my eyes. It felt like those red eyes were staring into my soul. I know that that was not my dream or sleep paralysis because I could freaking sense and observe everything. I could move as well. After making around 6 to 8 seconds eye contact, I went under my blanket and never looked back at that window whole night. Morning, I woke up and told this to my parents, but of course nobody believed me. I still remember those red eyes and I damn know that was not my dream. And yeah, I let the TV on whole night as well. History 21. My dad's story was when he was young, he was at home with his mom. Let's just say my dad's name is Joe. Joe didn't listen to his mother because he wanted to go to a party that his friends invited him. Joe begged to his mom to go to the party, but his mom said no because it was late already. Joe didn't listen and still went to the party. His mom told him that someone was gonna pop SM horror outside, but Joe still went. After hours, it was late, like about 2:30, almost 3 a.m. He was going home, walking. While walking, he was hearing something behind him. He looked back and saw nothing. After some minutes, he kept on hearing something behind him. He looked back and saw a dog with a pig body a few feet away. He looked confused but kept on walking after a while and felt chicken skin. And looked back, he saw a pig. This time, he got scared. He was almost home. After some time, he looked back and saw more pig following him. There were babies this time. After taking another look, he saw more. He prayed for the pigs to disappear. When he looked back, they weren't there no more.
That was enough for today, Cosmonaut. I'll wait for you in the next travel.